Okay, so example 1, we are solving proportions. This is lesson 5-7, solving proportions. So make sure you write that at the top of your notes. So this is a lot like what we just did in our project. So what we do, since they show me that these two fractions are equal, we know that they are proportional. That's what it means, is when two fractions are equal, they are proportional. That's also the only time we can do cross product is when they're equal. So we take and we cross multiply. It means you multiply the numbers diagonally. So we have b times 90 and 15 times 66. It doesn't matter which one you do first. Like I could have wrote 15 times 6 equals b times 90. So when we multiply that, well, we don't know what b is, so it's just 90 times b still, equals 15 times 66 is 990. Then from here, to solve for b, this is now an equation. We divide both sides by 90. Because this is being multiplied, we do the opposite and divide. So we have to divide both sides by 90. That gets rid of that, and I have b equals 990 divided by 90 is 11. So b equals 11 on that one. So then on this, you do the same thing even if there's a decimal in there. So if you like to use bat and ball instead of cross product, it's the same thing. It's just you're multiplying the only diagonal with two numbers, and then you divide by your ball. So we have 3.2 times 36, which is 115.2, then divided by 9, your ball, and you get 12.8 in. All I did was show you the other way you can solve this. You can do these, if you like this way better, do them both that way. If you like this way better, do them both that way. It's just whichever way is easiest for you to remember to solve for your missing variable since we're solving proportions. This is one of my favorite things to do in math is solve proportions. I like doing this. So I want y'all to try 1A, B, C, and D. We're going to do all 4 of these. Okay. Try all 4 of those. Solve. Pause your video to try it, and then I'll go over it. So by now, hopefully these are pretty easy for us since this is what we just did on our How Big Should I Be project. How we solve these is we cross multiply or bat and ball. So you can either do 2 bats or 1 bat. So since we have a missing one on this, the bat is the only circle you can make with 2 numbers in it. So you multiply your bat, divide by the ball. So I have 7 times 4 is 28, and then I have to do 28 divided by 20, and I get 1.4. So x on this one is 1.4. So on B, I'm going to show cross multiplying on this one. So you don't get confused if you do it this way, just keep doing it this way. Where we have 2 bats, you multiply your bats. 7 times 12, we have 84 equals 14c, because 14 times c is just 14c. To solve this equation for c, I would divide both sides by 14. 84 divided by 14 is 6. So c equals 6 on B. On 1c, we have a decimal that doesn't change anything. You still solve it the same way. So I have 6.8 times 50. That is 340 equals 34t. So I now divide both sides by 34. Well, that is just going to be, just double checking my work, 10. So t is 10. And then the last one on D, sorry, I didn't realize you couldn't see that. When we cross multiply, or if you do your bat and ball, you multiply your bat, divide by the ball. I have 42 times 8.5, that is 357. And then we can go ahead and divide by 51, that is 7. M equals 7 on that one. Let's look at example 2. Okay, so on example 2, now we have to work on setting up our proportion, and then solving it. So this problem says the wait time to ride a roller coaster is 20 minutes when there's 160 people in line. At this rate, how long is the wait time when 220 people are in line? So we set up a proportion to solve. I think that's why proportions are part of my favorite in math, is because you can turn almost anything into a proportional problem. So we know it was 20 minutes when there was 160 people in line. So use that to make a fraction. So 20 over 160, or you could do 160 over 20, doesn't matter. But since they did 20 over 60, that means they put minutes on top and people on bottom. Okay, so we have to keep it that way. So on my other fraction, I have to have minutes on top, people on bottom. So the question said, at this rate, how long is the wait time? So we are looking for the time. So the minutes, that's my variable. They said W for wait time. I just always say X on mine. Doesn't matter what letter you use. When there are 220 people in line. So they gave me people. So since I had people on bottom, you keep people on bottom on this side. So 220. So we have 20 over 160 and X over 220. Once we get our proportion set up, then we can solve it. So we would do 20 times 220 and then 160 times W. So when we multiply this, we get 4,400 equals 160W. Then you divide both sides by 160, and we get the wait time would be 27.5 minutes when there's 220 people in line. So what I want you to do is try number 2. The hardest part on this is setting up your proportion. Then you're just cross multiplying. So it says Alicia's class is making care packages for a local shelter. They can make 8 care packages with 240 food items. How many care packages can they make with 500 food items? I want you to pause the video, solve it, and then I'll go over it with you. On problem 2, it said Alicia's class is making care packages for a local shelter. They can make 8 care packages with 240 food items. How many care packages can they make with 500 food items? So the main thing you first do is look at your numbers. They tell me they can make 8 care packages with 240 food items. This isn't the only correct way to do this. This is just how I did it. I could have put 240 on top and 8 on bottom. But since I put care packages on top, my other fraction has to be care packages on top as well. So the question said, how many care packages can they make with 500 food items? So the only other number we have is 500. So we have to figure out if it would go on top or bottom. The 500 is food items, and I put food items on bottom, so it has to stay on bottom, which means I would have X on top because that's what I'm trying to figure out is how many care packages. If you had done these the opposite, that's okay as long as they were the same across. So now we cross multiply. I have 500 times 8, that is 4,000, equals 240x. I divide both sides by 240. And I get a repeating decimal, which is 16 2/3, but it said how many care packages can they make? Can they make 2/3 of a care package? No. That would be like just making half of a box. That doesn't make sense. So you can only make 16 care packages on this one. That would be your answer. Okay, so the third example, they want us to try and now set up an equation to represent. So it says Miss Hidalgo paid $30 for 4 students to visit an art museum. Find the cost for 20 students. So again, you can still set up a proportion to go ahead and solve if you want, to then make sure you get the same answer for your equation. So it says write and solve an equation. So they told us it was $30 for 4 students. So if I put that in a fraction, I have 30 over 4, so the cost over the students. So from here, instead of setting up your second fraction, you would go ahead and actually solve that. That means 30 divided by 4. If you plug that in your calculator, it's 7.5. So that means it's $7.50 per student. That means for each student. Okay, well, we haven't answered the question. It wants to know for 20 students, but first it wants me to make an equation. So you have to know for 1 per student. So how we do that? Well, the total cost is going to be $7.50 times however many students we have. So our equation would be this. C equals the total cost will equal 7.5 times the number of students. They said S, you could put X, doesn't matter. But C equals 7.5S. The reason they want us to write an equation is because an equation is true for however many students you have coming. So you could work it out for multiple problems. This problem in particular wants to know for 20 students. So we could go back in and plug 20 in for the number of students. 20 times 7.5 is 150. If you wanted to set up your proportion to double check that, you can. So it was $30 for 4 students, so money over students. And they wanted to know, well, how much money would it cost for 20 students? So again, we have to have money over students. So X over 20. Then if you cross multiply, you have 20 times 30, which is 600, and then 4 times X, which is 4X. You divide both of them by 4, and you get 150, which is what we got up here. It's just another way to double check your answer. So the hardest part on this problem is trying to make an equation. As long as you can go ahead and set up your proportions and solve, that's fine, but I still also want you to try to make an equation. So on these problems at the bottom, let me zoom in so you can read them a little better. I only want you to do 3B. Don't worry about 3A or 3C. You're only going to do 3B. So pause the video and try that, and then I'll go over it. Example 3 said, Cindy paid $34.60 for 4 tickets to the movie. How much would it cost for 7 tickets? So on this problem, we know it was $34.60 for 4 tickets. So how we set up our equation is first go ahead and figure out, well, how much would it cost per ticket for each ticket? So to do that, you just go ahead and divide $34.60 divided by 4, because that's what that means when we have a fraction. So $34.60 divided by 4 is $8.65. $8.65 per ticket. Okay, so I know the cost for any number of tickets. That's what an equation represents. It means for any number rather than just having one amount. So in this problem, we wanted to know for 7 tickets. But if I wanted to know for any number of tickets for any time, maybe next weekend I just need 5. So setting up an equation will be true for any number of tickets. So the total cost will equal, well, they are $8.65 each. So it's going to be $8.65 times however many tickets you need. So you could say X, T for tickets, it doesn't matter. So it will equal $8.65 times the number of tickets. So here's your equation. So then all we have to do, times 7. We get $60.55. That's how much it would cost for 7 tickets. Now, if we wanted to set up a proportion to double check, well, we still have $34.60 over 4 is going to equal how much for 7 tickets? Because I have tickets on bottom, so tickets stay on bottom. Had cost on top, cost will stay on top. We cross multiply. $34.60 times 7, $242.20. Equals 4x. Divide both sides by 4. We get $60.55. So we should have gotten the same answer. You're just double checking. It will cost $60.55 for 7 tickets. It's just now you're having to try and learn how to set up an equation to represent for any amount of tickets in this problem.